So the next part, in a simplest terms, any programming language, in a simplest terms, any programming language, what it will do? It will take some input. Yes or no? And it will generate some output. That's what the simplest meaning of every programming language. Then this, whenever we are giving input, what could be the type of input that any programming language takes? The types of inputs or the types of input that we are going to give can be of what type of information? Sometimes there will be some numbers, correct or not? The input can be in numbers format, like, so we'll give some 10, 20, 30, 40, then print the biggest number in the simplest way. Then some other times we are going to give some, the numbers only, but this time a decimal kind of numbers. Yes or no? And we'll be working with some alphabets, correct? And we'll be working with some names of the people, then some salary of the people. So maybe some mail IDs and some date of births. So these are the various types of inputs that we can give to a programming language. So based on our requirement, so we'll be doing some processing with our logics and all, then we are going to get some output. The point is, how do we store these inputs? By using what format or in which format these inputs has to be stored? What's the syntax to store this data? So for that, the next concept which we are going to discuss is a data type concept. Yeah. So in a simplest or a general meaning of this data type is nothing but it is a place to store some data. It's a place to store data. What is data? The numbers, the decimal numbers, the alphabets, the names is the data. So where do we store them? So for that, we'll be using some data types. That's the simplest meaning. For example, so here we are using some bag. So what's the purpose of this? We are storing some books inside this bag, correct? And we are using a bottle. What's the purpose of this? We'll be using to store some water or some liquid content and all. So it means, so this bag is a books or data type, or bag is a data type? Books are data type or bag is a data type? Bag is a data type. It's a place to store. Bag is a place to store something, and a bottle is a data type because bottle is a place to store something. Yeah. So this bag is one data type, and this bottle is also one data type. Something like here we are in a classroom. So we are data, but what about this classroom? Classroom is a data type which is able to store us inside this one, or which is able to make us sit inside this classroom. Right? So it is simplest meaning. So once if I go to the syntax and all those things, in terms of programming terminology, I'll discuss. But as of now, data type is nothing but it's a place to store some data. Yeah. Then I'll be using these real-time examples to draw some conclusions so that we remember data types much easiest way. So for that, let me use the same real-time examples. So we'll be using one container or data type called as a bag. What's the purpose of this bag? To store anything which is in the form of a solid. Can we store water in a bag? No, it's not possible. In a general, regular purpose of bags are used to store something in the solid format, maybe clothes or maybe books and all those things, right? Then here, assume that there is a bag which is a fixed capacity, that is 1 kg capacity. And by using this bag, can we store half kg quantity into this? Possible or not possible? Yes, possible. Can we store 1 kg quantity into this? Yes. Can we store 2 kg quantity into this? No, it's not possible. Can we enlarge the bag and store 2 kgs? No, it's not possible. The entire bag will collapse. It's never possible. It means it's a fixed size container or a varying size container. It's a fixed in size. Once we made a bag for 1 kg purpose, then we can store only up to the capacity less than that or the capacity equal to that, but not more than the capacity. And I'm going to use one more container like I already used a bottle. What's the purpose of this bottle? Store anything in the form of a liquid, maybe water or juice or something like that. So anything which is in the liquid format will be using this bottle store. Yeah. So again, the same thing a bit quickly. If the bottle is of 1 liter capacity, so can we store less than 1 liter? Yes. Can we store more equal to 1 liter? Yes. More than 1 liter? Not possible. So these two are possible, but this is not possible since bottle is also one fixed size container. Correct? So here there are two fixed size containers, but the purpose is same or different? Purpose of bag and purpose of bottle, same or different? Purpose. Purpose is different. One is bag is used for solid thing to store, and bottle is used for a liquid things to store. But both are fixed in size only. Then here I am using one more different container, which we already know, say a balloon. I'm going to use a balloon is my next container. So inside this balloon, so depends on the requirement. Depends on that. Can we store the different quantity of air into this balloon or not? Assume that it should not blast. That's a condition. So we can blow into some small size. We can blow into some medium size. And we can blow into some larger size also. It means it is a container. Is it fixed in size or varying in size? It is a varying in size. Correct? So depends on requirement. I can blow some less air or some medium air, some next capacity or maximum capacity of the air into this. So with this same understanding, like there are fixed type of containers in real life, but their purpose is different. There are some varying size containers which can take how much ever the data that we want to put inside that. And before I go for Java data types, one last question. What is this G stands for and this L stands for? Any idea? It's a measurement to store solid content in grams, and it's a L is the liters to store anything in the liquid content to measure it. Similarly, how do we measure the data? By using which units we measure system data? Yeah, so we all know that it is the bytes. And the shortest unit of these bytes is bits. Bits or bytes. Yeah, we'll see our hard disk is some 1 TB nowadays, 1 terabyte, or some 500 GB gigabytes. And my pen drive is 16 GB gigabytes and all those things. So that is bytes is a unit, giga is the capacity, tera is the capacity like that. So bit is the smaller unit than byte. Anybody any idea? 1 byte is how many bits? 8 bits. Yeah. So I'll be using all this information in our further classes. So that's why I'm giving the basics of all this. So now with this basic understanding of in real life, how we have fixed size containers and also varying size containers, where both are fixed, but their purpose is different. So in Java also, we have the similar way of data types as well. When it comes to Java data types, so there are two different ways of Java data types. One is nothing but fixed in size, and one more is varying in size. Fixed size data types we have, and varying size data types also we have. Then do we use the same terminology in programming language also? No. That's why this is just for our understanding, but we call them as a primitive data types as a fixed data types. There are primitive data types and then non-primitive data types. Then what are those under primitive? So there are 8 primitive data types in Java programming language. So what are those? So you might be having some idea. Can you please? Any idea about the data types? Int, exactly, yes. Int, then character, okay. So, okay, I'm using for some reason a different color combination. You can proceed in any order. So I'm writing some char. Next, string, yes. It comes under non-primitive, so I'm writing here. Next, Boolean, exactly. Float, yes. So I'm using say boolean. The next somebody said float. I'll be using different color. Float, yes. Next, I said 8, but we got only 4. No idea, it's fine. Then along with float we have one more thing called as double, and then along with integer we have something called as byte and short and int, then long as well. So these are 8 primitive data types that we have in Java, and we have some more list in non-primitive, but at this initial level I'll be discussing with only string. So as we move on, we'll understand the remaining non-primitive data types also, but at this point of time 8 primitives called byte, short, int, long, float, double, character, boolean and string. Then which are fixed size? All these are fixed in size. It means there is certain data only is possible, certain range of values only are possible to store by using these primitives. But when it comes to string, we can store any such type of data. Then before we go for the next part, what is the purpose of each? What is the purpose of this byte, short, int, long? These 4 are used to store non-decimal numbers or simply numbers. These 4 are used to store non-decimal numbers type of data. So for example, non-decimal numbers like some 10, 100, 1000. So all these are nothing but some 101, 103. All those things are examples of non-decimal numbers. Then at the same time, what if they are decimal numbers? Then for that, we have a float and double to store decimal numbers, fractional numbers, rational numbers. All 3 are same only. So for example, like 3.14, some 1.5. So all these things are nothing but some examples of non-decimal numbers. Then if you want to store the purpose of character, it is used to store letters, any single letter at one time, any single character, I'll say. Only a single character is possible by using this character data type. Then when it comes to boolean, so they are nothing but yes or no kind of general answers. In a programming terminology, it's a true or false kind of data will be used to store by using this primitives. Yeah. So these are the purposes of the primitive types. Then out of these, I want to store my name. Can we use any primitive here? No. So name is nothing but a group of characters, so we can't use any of the primitives. I want to store my mail ID. Possible? No. With primitives, no. The next, I want to store my date of birth. It maybe looks like only the date, but because of the slash or because of the hyphen, it's a non-numeric data. Then it is also not possible with any of the primitives. Then for all such things which are not possible to store with primitive, I repeat the point, which are not possible with primitive, then we can go for string to store. Yeah, so this is like, so then group of characters like names and some combination of special symbols and all those things in the form of mail IDs. And then, so with the help of some numbers only, but with hyphens or some special symbols and all, date of birth. Blood group also looks like A positive, but because of that plus symbol, then it will become group of characters and all, like blood groups. So all these things will be using to store by using a string type of data. Clear? This is the purpose of it. And here, like for primitives, bottle and bag, there is a fixed in size. Then what is the size of these data types also? Byte will occupy or will consume 1 byte of memory. Whenever we use byte in our RAM, 1 byte of memory consumption will happen. So for short, it is 2 bytes. For int, it takes 4 bytes. For long, 8 bytes of data. For float, 4 bytes. Then for double, 8 bytes again. For character, 2 bytes. But boolean, 1 bit. It's not byte. So since they are fixed in size, so their size has to be limited. So that's why, so this for every primitive data type, there is a fixed in size in terms of RAM or memory. When it comes to string, since it is name, my name has some 10 letters, your name has some 30 letters. So still it is capable of storing it. That's why it's like a balloon. So it is no limit for the data. Depends on whatever we give, it consumes that much of memory. So that's why we cannot say something is fixed to the string type. So do you have any questions here? I'm just listing what are the types and I'm just giving the information of what is their purpose. I didn't give any Java syntax of how do you store numbers and all such type of data. We didn't go to the syntax yet. Any questions, please, at this point? No? Yeah. So then let us move to the usage of these data types. How do we use them in our programs? So for that, the next concept is using the Java data types. All these int, byte, short, all these things are programmer defined or predefined? Predefined things. So for any predefined thing, in order to use them in our program, so we definitely understand the syntax of them. So for any new thing, something is predefined thing, like class is a predefined concept. So we have to know the syntax. Then only we can use the class in our program. Similarly, the syntax, the general syntax for the Java data types is, so first data type, then space, variable name, then equal to symbol, then data or value, then ends with semicolon. So this is the general syntax. And why I am using this word called general, there is a small variation from one type to another type. That's why I'm saying that this is the standard format. The minute changes will be in the same part only, in the syntax only. So there are some single quotes, double quotes will be added. So this is the general syntax. Then to understand this syntax, let me take one requirement. The requirement is store a value called as 10. Store 10. It's what type of data? Character data or true or false kind of data or float data? No, 10. It's a numeric data, non-decimal. Yeah, it's a numeric data or non-decimal data. More clearly, to store numeric data out of the list of data types, we can use how many? Yeah, how many we can use? Along with integer, something else is also possible? No. Float is for decimal, but is 10 is a decimal number? Yeah, we have to go for int, then byte, short, int, long. All these four are assigned for storing any numeric type of data. So to store this 10, so can we use any one of that or not? Can we use any one of that? But which is recommended? Yeah. So for that, let me give the example first. How do we use the data types? So in place of data type, what we have to use? So I'll go for byte is my data type. And if you just notice from the previous slide, all the primitives, this is the spelling we have to use, and this is the case sensitivity we have to use. I have written everything in lowercase letters only. Yeah. And when it comes to string, if you notice, I have written S capital letter. Yeah. All primitives must be in lowercase letters. If you are using any capital letter, then that is syntactically wrong. And when it comes to non-primitive, only S first letter has to be capital. And for character, generally we pronounce as character, but we have to type char only, char only while using it. Then the same thing I'm implementing here. So in place of data type, byte, then variable name. Variable name is always a programmer choice. Okay. We can use a single letter, we can use a group of letters, but by following some standards, initially I'm not introducing any standards and all. So my variable name is A. Then equal to symbol in any programming language is called as assignment operator. It's a assignment operator. That's why byte space variable name A, then assignment operator, then my value or data, which is 10, then it has to end with semicolon. So here is the semicolon. This is the syntax to use byte data type. That is data type space variable name, assignment operator, then value. So here it looks like I'm using a space here and I'm using a space here. No, while typing, no, just for a clear visibility of the text I'm writing like this, but while typing these spaces are not mandatory, but this space is mandatory. Then same way, to store a numeric data, we can also use short. So here I'm using short, then some variable name B of programmer choice, then same value I'm using 10. Then we can also use int. So that's why I'm using here the int type, int, then C is my next variable name equals the same value 10. Then next I'm using long. Long has a purpose, I'll discuss later. So out of these three, which is recommended? Int is recommended. Any reason for that? Byte is recommended. Any reason for that? Exactly. So whenever we write any program, our program has to occupy less memory and our program has to give the fastest output. So that is how a best programmer skill will be judged on that. So in this scenario, which takes more memory? Byte takes 1 byte of memory in the RAM and short takes 2 bytes of memory. Int consumes 4 bytes of memory. So it means the least consumption is the best option. That's why byte is recommended. Byte is recommended, but over recommendation, we look for more comfort. So for programmers comfort, so it is always we are going to use the integer only. Yeah, the answer recommended is byte because it consumes less memory, but generally programmers tended to use int in all scenarios for any small number to the some big numbers and all. That's why we go for comfort over the recommendation in this scenario. So from this time onwards, if any number comes, we will be using integer. Yeah, but recommended is byte. Am I clear? Next, after the next example, we will execute through Eclipse as well. So the next example, again, I am taking some requirement like store age of a person, say whose age is some 20. Then how do we write a syntax for this to store 20 value? Since 20 is what type of data? Numeric type of data. So just now we discussed a recommended data type is int. So I'll be using in place of data type in a syntax. I'm using int. Then a meaningful variable name space. Age is my meaningful variable name. And this represents the age. That's why. Then assignment operator. Then 20 is the value. Then semicolon. Correct? When JVM execute this line of code, internally in the memory or RAM, what will happen is because of int type, because int is a primitive type, because of this int type in memory, the container means some part of memory. I use data type means a container in a real time general definition. But when it comes to programming language, the data type means it is some consumption of part of memory. So which we already know, it is a 4 bytes. By looking at this int type, JVM allocates a 4 bytes of memory to store the data. Then for this container, the name will be given as the age. And inside this, the value will be stored as a 20. When JVM execute this line of code, this is what it will happen in the memory. Then how do we print this 20 as output? For getting anything as output, we mandatory should use a print syntax, print statement syntax. So what is the print statement syntax? Yeah, system dot out dot print ln. So inside this parenthesis, we have to use something. What we supposed to use? So in double quotes or not? Yeah. In double quotes, what we have to use? So then what should I write here? Age, can I write like this? Yeah. So if we use in double quotes, now if JVM executes this line of code, what is our output for this one? So yesterday's class we discussed, when today also we just checked it, whatever we give in double quotes, the same thing will appear as a output. So this time we are going to get age is output. But what is our requirement? We want age as output, or we want 20 as output? 20. So here, what is this age here? In syntax of the data type, what is this age? It's a variable name, right? So to get the value of the variable, so inside this print syntax, so we have to use the variable name as it is without any single quotes or without any double quotes and all. So to get a proper output of this value 20, we have to use age as it is. So now this line of code will give output of what's value? So in this scenario, when JVM executes this line of code, so programmer is trying to access the variable. Then JVM goes to memory and look for one of the container name or one of the memory location name called as age as per the same naming standards. Yes, there is something called as age, and JVM picks this data and generates that as a output for the programmer. So this is the scenario of if you are using the anything in double quotes, we get them as it is in the output part. But to get a value of a variable, we have to use the variable name as it is. So for your notes purpose to remember better, so variable names should be used without any quotes. Any quotes, I mean no single quotes, no double quotes. Any question? Please, it will help others also. Understood? Yeah. The next question, is it possible to modify the data? So my next requirement, I'm using double forward slash means a commented line in Java program. So here, modify data from 20 to 30. Assume that some misinformation is given as 20, but the actual information is 30. So we have to correct that. Then I don't want to declare a new variable and all. In the same variable only, we have to modify. That's what the modification is, right? Then how do we modify this value from 20 to 30 in the same variable name called as age? So again, data type, int, then variable name, age equals, then the value 30. So if I am writing this entire thing in one single program, then, so this is nothing but a compilation error. Why? Because first of all, this is error. Why error means already a variable name called as age, which is declared as a integer type. In this program, already it is declared. Then it is never recommended to use the data type once again to reuse the variable name. To reuse the same variable name, we never require to mention the data type once again because it's already mentioned in the previous code. That's why. So this is the correct way of modifying the existing variable data. Then when JVM execute this, I'm using this symbol for JVM from now onwards. When JVM execute this line of code, first JVM goes to the RAM and look for the variable name called as age, which is already present. Then previous data will be removed from that and a new value will be updated into the same location. Then from now onwards, I mean after this line onwards, if we try to access the same variable name, then what is output that we are going to get? So if I print this age variable, then this line of code will give what output? 30 or 20? 30. So do we ever going to get 20 as output after this line? No, always, because the value is updated in the memory. So therefore, only 30 is a value which will be retrieved whenever we are using the age as a variable name in this scenario. Is it understood? Or do you have any questions? How do we use the data type syntax? And what can be the meaningful variable name? And how do we print the value? So not with double quotes, without any double quotes or without any single quotes. That's how the variable should be used inside a print function. Then is it possible to modify? Yes. Then can we use the data type once again? No, because it's already declared. Only use the existing variable name and assign a new value. That's what we call it as a modification. And after modification, whenever we try to retrieve, we are going to get updated value only. We are never going to get the previous value, which is gone. Before this line, always the age value will be 20. But after this line, age value is going to be 30. Understood? Yeah. So I would like to show the same thing through Eclipse as well. So for this, I'll close the current file. Before that, I'm saving it first. I close this. And I'll create a new project. So for that, I'm going to file, then new. Sorry. A Java project. I'll name this Java project as a meaningful name, data type is my project name. D and T are capitals. And you asked some question, can we use a space? So space is throwing the error immediately, invalid name. And is it possible to use underscore? Yes, it is allowed. But when Java developers didn't use the underscores for the predefined things, then being a follower of Java also, it's not recommended to use it. So I click on finish. So a new project got created. Then inside this project, the next thing is we have to create a package by right clicking on SRC, then go to new and select a package. So I'll take this package name as com dot company name called grads dot, then a meaningful package name data type. It's not a keyword. Yeah. So int is a keyword or not? Int is a predefined thing. It's a keyword or not? Byte, short, int, all these are keywords. Yes, keywords. Now you observe, I'm using keyword as the end of my package name. Is it accepting? Now immediately we are saying that invalid package name, int is not a valid Java identifier. But if I'm using a data type, it's not a keyword. Therefore, it can be given as a part of the package name. Yeah. So always this end part has to be the current concept name. Company name will be some com.google only, but you are working for some HR module. I am working for some say another module. Then there the subtopic name we have to change it so that internal proper folder structure will happen under the same company name only. So I click on this finish. Then the third one. So I right click on this package, then go to new and declare create a class. So I'll take this class as sample. And for execution, so we have to select this main method. Otherwise, syntactically, we are going to be correct, but we are not going to get any outputs. So I click on this after selecting the public static void main. So this is the file. And inside this main method only, so we are going to type our code until unless we learn the different concepts. Okay. So here, I'm using a data type called byte, then space, variable name of programmer choice, then assignment operator equal to symbol, then a value, say 10. Accepted? Then to print, we can use a print statement. I am typing some shortcut. I'll tell you what is that in our upcoming classes. So I'm using a variable name, but in double quotes. Is it correct? Syntactically correct, but do we get output as 10? No. So let me save this program and I'm executing this program. You can see in my console, what's the output we got? We got the output as A. But we want A as a variable name or we want the value of A as 10? Value of A as 10. Therefore, the correct approach for this one is we have to go for the variable name without any quotes and all. Now this will give the proper output. Since we have two print functions or two print statements, we are going to get two lines of outputs. So the second one is giving the output called 10. Then same way, we can also use a different data types called as short. Short, then some b is my next variable name, assignment operator. Then the next value I'm using 100. Accepted. Then next integer example, anyhow, we are going with our current example. Say int age equals 20. Then to see the output of this one, so we have to use age in double quotes or directly without any quotes? Without. So if I use age, then we are going to get our output called as third line of output. I want you to observe. So we are going to get the 20 is the value. So all three outputs are there. 20 is the value. The next, is it possible to modify the age value? Yes. Then for that, can we use the data type once again? No, I'm using wantedly. Let us check what's the error. So it is giving us some suggestions. Always Eclipse will give us suggestions, or compiler is giving us suggestions. What is the suggestion? Just you can place your cursor on this into mark and you can say duplicate local variable. So here is a point to remember. In one entire class, if a variable name is already used, or in one method, if a variable name is already used, we are not supposed to reuse the same variable name with the data type. Okay? It's not only for integer. If you are changing this to byte also, the same error only we are going to get, because it's a duplicate local variable. Variable name with type again should not be used. It can be same type or it can be different type also. That's what the error is saying. So then what's the correction? Remove the int. But can I change the variable name only? Yes. Is it modification or reassigning a new data to new variable? Reassigning a new data to a new variable. That's not a modification. Therefore, renaming the variable name is not a proper solution for our requirement. Then what's the solution? Remove the data type. So this is accepted. So now after this line number 16 onwards, if you are trying to access this age variable, so we are always going to get the output called as update output only. So here, so let me save this and let me execute. So the last output we are going to get as a 30. If you want to see a meaningful way of output format, then to this variable, we can add something. So what is this add and all? I'll use the technical terms as we move forward. So within double quotes, if you want to add something, the age of person, then colon space for proper presentation. So I'm writing that inside double quotes. When we give something in double quotes, do we get the same thing or not? Yes, along with the age variable value. So we are going to get it. Now let me save and I'll execute this once again. Now this time you can see in the meaningful output format, the age of person colon space is there in double quotes, which is as it is. Then to that we are adding something called as a variable name age, which is going to give its value called as 30. So this is about using our Java data types to start with byte, short, int. Yeah. Then the remaining discussion of remaining 5 types of primitive and also string we will be discussing in our next class.